everybody, and welcome to another video with History Gal. Today I am taking you on a really special tour. I've already shown you modern houses of mine. I've taken you on a tour of my modern neighborhood. But here today I'm going to take you on a tour of my historical game. I have the modern people, their real lives as best as I can, and I really love history. I'm a history teacher. World history is my favorite thing. Art history is my favorite. So in this episode, I'm going to show you the neighborhoods that I have created that represent historical time frames for me and have some of the most major players in history involved. This starts for me with Oasis Springs. It represents Egypt and ancient Greece, as well as a little bit of, I think I've got Boudica is in here, so this is like ancient worlds. So you have to have a pyramid in ancient worlds. And I have gods and goddesses in this world as well. So here we have the gods of ancient Egypt living across the street from the Greek gods here. And to give them more space, we have more Olympians. They really take up a lot of space. And they're living right next to Hercules and Megara from the Disney version. And across the street from Hercules is Alexander the Great and his family in a more realistic version. They all live in villas and Greek houses. My Egyptians are living in pyramids and villas that have lots of open space. So I have Antony and Cleopatra living here. I also have Ramses II living next to Hatshepsut. And then I also have a couple more Greeks here in the form of Ovid and Socrates, spelled Socrates to be funny. I've got big brains here. So this is Plato of Athens and Aristotle of Greece. They actually did know each other in real life. I've got Leonidas and his wife, Giorgio of Spiliopolis, if I said that right. I've got Nefertiti, Boudica, representing for England, and then Sappho, the great poet from Greece. I have a really cool Egyptian cocktail lounge. I have the Hall of Apollo as a spa. I have the Library of Alexandria, and I also have an underwater pyramid museum. All of these things are on the gallery. You can find them too. If I move right along in time, I think the next place I can go is Magnolia Promenade because it represents ancient Rome. So I actually have a triumphal arch as well as a baths, the courtyard spa. Then I have Julius Caesar living here with his family, and across from them I actually have just a Roman villa that represents where Servilia of the Julii can live. These are historical houses as accurately as possible. Then if I go to New Crest, we move along to the Middle Ages. So, ancient world, middle world, and then I'm going to move forward from there. So in the Middle Ages, we still have some fantastical elements. From here you can kind of see the dragon head where Viserys Targaryen lives next to Merlin the Wizard. And then I've got Marjorie Tyrell living here as well. So these do not have to be accurate, but those games are meant and set in the Middle Ages, so it kind of fits. Down here I have a Plantagenet household. Next to them I have Sir Thomas Becket, because this is Henry Plantagenet living here. So his bestie slash worstie, Thomas Becket, is living at Canterbury Cathedral. Then over here we have King Arthur and his wife. Next to them we have Joan of Arc, Geoffrey Chaucer, Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, so everybody else needs to watch out, and Robin Hood. I also have a beautiful Knights Templar museum, a beautiful Notre Dame, a medieval tavern, a windmill, and then I think I've got a place for someone else to move into, but it's still a medieval mansion, so that if I wanted to move someone else in, I could. And then moving right along from there, Windenburg is the Renaissance, you guys. So the Renaissance is really fun. I have a lot of really cool households in here. I have as closely accurate to Hampton Court as you can fit into this game. Here I have Elizabeth I living, and up the street from her because it's a game and they can live together in harmony. Her dad, King Henry VIII, in a big Tudor mansion. Next to him is Martin Luther in an actual cloister. Really close to him is Sir Thomas More because, he represents the transition to Protestantism. Sir Thomas More was his actual best friend that tried to talk him out of some of the crazier stuff he did, but it still happened. This is Elizabeth slash Bessie Blount, who was one of the main mistresses for Henry VIII. And then at Hever Castle, waiting to play her turn, is Anne Boleyn. Down here with Elizabeth on the island, we have Anne of Cleves, as well as the actual cast from the show Reign, just to be funny. And Louis XIV is living in a small cutout of the original house that was Versailles before he upgraded it. And living in a little house across the street from Elizabeth so that he can keep her happy is William Shakespeare. And he's got a pretty hilarious outfit. Over here in the main part of the town, we've got Machiavelli living across the street from the artists. And here I have Mona Lisa in the flesh living with Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and Raphael. All of them have their own floor, their own place to hang out, as well as their own studio space. Here I have the Pope, and in this instance it is Pope Sixtus, who oversaw a lot of the expansion and work to upgrade and make Rome beautiful, and another family that paid a lot of money for that and is very important to Renaissance art and architecture is the House of the Medici. And here I have Lorenzo de' Medici with his wife when they were still young, growing their dynasty. I have a really cool temple from Rome in here. I have a really cool ancient Roman bath. I have really cool parks and cafes for people to go to when they do want to get out on the town. Everything is as vintage as possible and Renaissance-y, so that like the pubs and stuff kind of let people feel like they are in actual Renaissance times. The next era I'm going to go to is the American Revolution town. This represents America and the westward push. So, like, for example, I have Daniel Boone living across from a place for people to hang out. And then we have George Washington inside of Mount Vernon. We have Thomas Jefferson at Monticello. I've got my dad living here because he passed away, so he gets to live in my historical town. We've got James Madison and Alexander Hamilton, so these are our founding fathers. I've got Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, and Paul Revere living over here. I've got Pocahontas and John Smith kind of living in the wilderness area. I already showed you Daniel Boone. And then the Library of Congress is here, as well as Bunkers Hills Bar and the Lincoln Memorial. I thought all of these would be pretty fun. Then moving right along to Willow Creek. This represents my Victorians, which is both Americans and English people. So to be a Victorian era in the 1800s, you have to have Victoria, right? So Queen Victoria and Albert live here. She's the queen, so she's in the biggest place. But up on the hill as well is the Rockefellers, because they're basically American royalty. You've got Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Edison, Edgar Allan Poe, Lord Byron, and Mary Shelley after she left her husband, y'all. And then down the hill we have some artists and musicians who made a big difference in our world, but they didn't really benefit from it in person. So Nikola Tesla, even though he's the guy who invented all the stuff we use, Edison's the big house. He's in the small steampunk house down the street. Vincent van Gogh in the yellow house from Arles. Charles Darwin in another Victorian steampunk kind of a house. Claude Monet in a really cool house from the gallery that has his paintings and his workshop and everything involved. I've got Harriet Tubman in her very own plantation house. Once she saved everybody else, she was able to retire in comfort in this house for me once she helped the Union and ended slavery. And then here I've got people from kind of more the 1700s, but who may or may not have still been alive when Victoria and Albert came to power. So Charles Dickens, for example, Marie Curie in a French Parisian house with the entire bottom floor as a giant lab. I've got Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart living, his apartment's just the top floor of this Viennese building, and then there's like clubs and stuff downstairs. I've got Mark Twain in a river house on the river for him to write his books. And I've got Ludwig van Beethoven. So I thought that'd be cool. I never changed the buildings here. They were all already Victorian, so that worked out really great. Moving right along, the last place I think that I really made correct and historic was San Myshuno, and this represents the 1920s and 30s for me. So you've got the Harlem Renaissance, you've got designers, and really I try to put like artsy people in certain areas and so on and so forth. So over here really represents Harlem for me and the music of the time and everybody. So we've got Billie Holiday, Bessie Smith, Louis Armstrong, and Duke Ellington in one building. And then next to them we have black writers. So Langston Hughes, and then F. Scott Fitzgerald. He's not black, but he's cool. And then they have a really nice restaurant as well as a really cool Art Deco club they can go to. Over here I have artists and musicians. So Walt Disney, my family, the Maines family. This is where we can pretend to interact with the past. And Ernest Hemingway. I've got Al Capone living across from Charlie Chaplin. And then I've got Salvador Dali at the top of this crazy building here. Over here, this is kind of like my high flying guys. So I've got Gatsby in the tower. All right. I've got Babe Ruth living across from an old Albert Einstein. I've got the Godfather crime bosses living across the hall from J. Edgar Hoover so that he can follow them as they do inappropriate and bad things. And then over here I have Coco Chanel living in the beautiful Art Deco house on top of the building. I've got I've got Newt Scamander here from Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, as well as Alfred Stieglitz and Georgia O'Keeffe. And then in this building, I've got Alice Paul, one of the women who won us the right to vote, living across the hall from Clara Bow. And then she lives across the street from the Goldstein sisters, again from Harry Potter lore. I think those are all the major houses that I've done in here. I've not really done anything with Forgotten Hollow or Del Sol. So tell me what you think in the comments, what I should put there, what time frames and periods I'm leaving out, and any important people that you think I should include. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed. Stick around and tell me if you want me to make other videos.